All right, here with Adam Gilad, and we're going to be talking about you have a project, a summit coming up called the Way of the Inspired Man, and
Yeah.
we've been friends for a while, and I've always wanted to get you interviewed, and I don't normally do the remote interview, but I think it's very appropriate right now since you're launching this summit, and I have a lot of men that listen to my show, and I think it'd be good for them to hear this message. So,
And we're far away.
and we're far away. Where are you at right now?
I'm on the beach in the Dominican Republic. Here, I just holding it up. Yeah, man. Oh.
Yep. I'm on the beach in Southern California. We're living really rough lives these days.
Well, I have, ever since I was a small child, determined that my life was going to be my art and my work, that, you got one go around. And I just determined early that I was going to travel the world, write, read, learn, teach, explore. It's always been my thing. So
Yeah.
Here we go.
Yeah, you're doing it well. I think I'm doing it well. I think you and I both cracked the code on something that a lot of people, I think a lot of people, a lot of men would look at the way our lives are going if they follow social media or whatever and go, "Oh, must be nice." What do you say? What do you say when someone's like, "Oh, it must be nice"? Like they can't do it for some reason.
It's funny. When I made the shift, because I have a little different life than you. I got married super, super young and was working in Los Angeles as a writer and producer in TV. And my career ended suddenly because the kind of movies I made, they stopped making in a day when reality TV came in. And I was a pretty good life already. I'd work in the morning and I'd spend the afternoon with my little boys, which is to me the perfect life, And when I say my little boys, I mean my sons. I don't know if I want to be clear about that. And now they're big boys. Now they're in their 20s. But so my career stopped, and I was dead bust broke, and I had to figure out what to do. And I had already been teaching. I taught university, and I was teaching a course at my house on something called spiritual autobiography, just a way to get people to conceptualize their life. Like, where have I come from? Where do I want to go? And I use texts from all over the world because I have a sort of wild, broad background in a lot of cultures. And I discovered, wow, I could teach it online and no one can say no. And it's an infinite universe and it costs almost nothing to get it out there. Cool. It was a mind blower in October 2004 when I realized what was possible. And I remember a friend of mine a couple of years later, and I was miserable, married back then. And I remember pulling up to my local cafe, and this friend of mine who's a cinematographer goes, "Hang on a second. Weren't you broke and miserable and married a couple of years ago? Now you pull in this hot little sports car with your beautiful Italian girlfriend. What happened?" So I don't get I don't get must be nice. Mostly I got, what happened? What'd you do? What happened?
People that saw the before and after.
Yeah, I got a lot of that. And then I'm happy. And then I teach people, how to make the shift. It's a mindset shift and an action shift. So yeah, I don't get a lot of must be nice. Because my world at this point is us. It's people like you, people who are doing what we do. I left my old life way back decades ago in suburbia in New York. So
yeah. What was the thing that, it's not always the case with everybody, but for me, I had a moment where the light bulb went off.
Oh yeah.
What was that moment?
I had a few moments. So I was dead bust broke, seriously in debt, $375,000 in debt. I just wrote a program called The Hidden World of Millionaires. And I was telling my accountant about it. And I said, "Remember when I was $100,000 in debt?" She goes, "Dude, you were $375,000 in debt." I'm like, "Oh shit, that's bad." And so back then, I was dating and I was drawing off my house, and I met this gazillionaire woman. And I'm known for, I've taught dating and relationship for a long time and how to communicate. So my profile was really good. And she read it over the shoulder of her clothes buyer. All right, she wasn't on it, but I didn't even know this existed. But in Beverly Hills, these women who are clothes buyers, they drive around in these vans and they go to these mansions and they bring the latest clothes. So this woman was at her house and she was looking over her shoulder and read my profile. Same one that got me on ABC TV, by the way. And she said, "I want to meet this guy." So I met this woman. I didn't know who she was. And I met her and she's super beautiful. We were talking and it was great. And I said, "I'm thinking of taking my kids boating this summer," meaning kayaking. And she said, "I'm thinking of doing it with my kids." Well, I went to pick her up for a first date. I learned it was a 110-foot yacht with a 7-person full crew $20 million, now probably $50 million estate at the top of Beverly Hills. I mean, rich, okay? House profiled in Rob Report, like the middle. And I showed up in a Honda Civic with peeling paint. No kidding. And I looked around the house, I'm like, shit, like, wow. And we already liked each other, you know? And then we went to a party at another house, which was even bigger. And Val Kilmer was there, and it was like, there were Picassos on the wall. It was like crazy wealth. And I said to her at the party, I said, can I ask you a question? Because I was trying to figure out how to pay my bills, Mike. Like literally, how am I going to pay my bills? How am I not going to lose my house? And she goes, sure. And I go, what's like your nut on your house? Like, what's your mortgage? She goes, $65,000 a month. And I'm like, that's a lot of money. And she goes, you know what? She goes, it isn't. I'm like, what are you talking about? She goes, look around this room. She goes, no one here is like smarter than you. No one's more creative than you. No one has a better personality. You're not categorically different from the people in this room. They just focused on making money. You've never done that. You know, I was an academic for years. For 10 years, I was an academic. And I was a screenwriter and producer. She goes, and I love my work. She goes, they focused on making money. If you put your attention on making money, you could do it too. And I was like, really? I can't. Now, by contrast.
But we're not told that growing up.
No, it wasn't even an issue. Like, but I was married for 17 years, and bless her, she's a wonderful person in many, many ways. But she grew up with a very depression era mentality. And she used to tell me when I would try to do things, like when I was trading in 1999, like, because I used to be a stockbroker in New York. So when I saw the bubble happening in 99, I'm like, I'm going to ride this thing. And her message to me was, you don't have money karma. That was the message I was getting from her. So that moment shifted my mindset. Wow, anything's possible. And that's when I started actually looking and exploring, and I ended up at an internet marketing seminar. And I didn't know anything. I didn't even know what it was, but I plopped down $2,000 because my gut told me this is the future. You know, I was at Stanford during the internet boom, you know, and the Google guys were there, and I taught Jerry Yang. He was in my freshman class. He founded Google. You know, so I was there, but missed the whole technology thing because I was a writer. So I go to this event at the Westin in LA, right? I didn't know anything about anything. And I'm sitting there in the audience, and I'm like, hang on. And I said to the person next to me, let me get this straight. Virtually infinite market, virtually no startup cost. And they're like, yeah. And I'm like, all right, come on. What's the catch? Come on. I'm from New York. Like, come on, tell me. You know, and they're like, catch. And I literally went around to people going, what am I missing? I don't get it. Like, I can reach anyone in the world with a product, content, teaching, and there's virtually no startup costs. I don't have to buy a building. I don't have to get real estate. I don't have to get furniture, office, like nothing. And they're like, yeah, you just put up a website. I'm like, and that was the other light bulb. I was like, holy shit, the world has changed. So those two things just totally shifted I did my first product on online dating, how to write a profile for men in a language that women feel. And my kid and I, we got up in the morning and ran, and we booted up the computer back then, right? Actually had to boot it up.
You actually had to start it. Yeah.
It was like $6,000 in my account. And then there was $30,000. Then it was $60,000 in my account in like a month and a half. I'm like, okay, this is good. New world. So yeah.
Oh yeah.
That's
amazing. Yeah, that shifted everything, huh? Did you find that your mind shifted around? It's like, oh, okay, everything I thought about money wasn't true. What else isn't true?
Yeah, well, a lot of what else isn't true happened because I got single around that same time. And then I met a girl on the dating site. She was the star of a TV show on ABC called How to Get the Guy. And she was in San Francisco, and she was complaining, I can't meet a guy who's masculine and spiritual. And they say, go online. She goes, I'm not going online. I live in San Francisco. We don't do those things. I don't even have a television, right? And but they got her to go online. On ABC television, she reads my profile. She reads the first line. She goes, damn, who's this guy? And I went up to meet her on the show. It was hilarious, by the way. And we dated for like a year. But she introduced me to Burning Man, David Data, Tantra, like opened my fucking world. Am I allowed to? Do you curse here?
You can say whatever you want. Please.
Yeah, open my fucking world. My world changed, kind of like yours when you moved out to California. I remember you when you came out with straw in your teeth and a straw hat and a corncob pie. You know, dung boots or whatever. You came from Nebraska, wherever the hell you came from. You came rolling out of the Midwest like a Mormon painting, or I don't know what.
That's right. Yeah, I came from Tennessee. Yeah, Tennessee. We met in Austin, Texas, actually.
Yeah,
that was the first time. Yeah. When did you go to Burning Man first?
2007. Yeah, 2007, first time. And somebody had to actually do it for me. Somebody bought me the ticket. Like I was like, it's too much thinking about it. A friend of mine just bought me a ticket. We went, and it was awesome.
Was there an acclamation when you got there? I would say Burning Man was like my first like introduction to that community. Like I'd already had some experiences that I started questioning everything, but Burning Man was the first time where I was surrounded by people who had questioned everything and then started making choices.
Yeah, that year, 2007, it was partly Burning Man. That was the year I went to Burning Man. I went to Peru and did ayahuasca for the first time. Went to China to do an exploratory sort of business thing. And I had my first $500,000 weekend, actually. So like my life changed that year in multiple ways, but I think it was the ayahuasca that really made the biggest difference. Burning Man was kind of a continuation for me of stuff I had been experiencing. So that first year, the second time I brought my sons, I will say my sons, when he went to college, my younger one, I said, what's the best thing I did as a dad? You know, kind of fishing for compliments before he's gone. You know? And he goes, you took me to Burning Man. And I'm like, wow, why? And he goes, that's where I learned who I was. You know, that's who he is. And he works in New York. He's a jazz musician. And he comes out every year. Like, that's who he is. He knows his identity through Burning Man.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Burning Man opened up my eyes to the possibility of, it's like, oh, you can do whatever you want. We're told that. It's like, you can do whatever you want. You can choose this job or that job or that job. But then when you go to Burning Man, you go, oh, that's what whatever you want means.
I can do whatever I want. I can do whoever I want. So it's a much broader field of possibility, right? So, yeah. I mean, it was pretty crazy. I don't remember the first year as much as I remember subsequent years when I really did it right. Yeah.
Yeah. The first year for me was so awe-inspiring. I just remember leaving and going, what the fuck just happened? Yeah. And then the next year it was a lot more memorable and fun.
Yeah.
So, why are you doing the Way of the Inspired Man, the summit?
Yeah. So thank you. We're doing the Inspired Man Summit 2018. This is the spring version. I'm going to be doing more versions because holy shit, dude. There are so many great men out there. So I've been a teacher of dating, relationship, personal growth for probably 14 years. You know, my first book was on how to communicate in a way that in a language women actually feel. And I taught poetry, writing at Stanford. As a screenwriter, I used to run National Lampoon Radio. So like I'm good with language, right? So that was a natural thing for me to do. And it was kind of a big success. But from there, I started teaching dating, relationship skills. And then once I figured out money and sort of how to build a business, I've been teaching that. But mostly I've been teaching how to live a bold life, like how to fucking live a bold life, the life you actually want to live. Because I'm incapable. I suck at faking it. I tried Wall Street. I sucked at it. I was in the music industry. I sucked at it. You know, even university, being in academia, I just was not obedient. You know, I got in trouble. Mm-hmm. I got in trouble because a student asked me if I thought gay men were born gay. And I said, well, I think gay men are born gay, but I think lesbians are sucked into it. And I got in trouble for that. I got in trouble, seriously. But that happened a few times. So I'm not good with following rules. So I've been teaching kind of boldness as a thing, and then kind of external boldness. And over the last couple of years, much more internal, like really facing shadow, really facing where you're not living in alignment with yourself. I had some calamities in my own personal life. And so I was in a very internal space last year. And then this whole Me Too thing happened, right? The whole Me Too thing broke out into the culture. Women are going like, hey guys, this is our experience. And it's not so happy. And of course, that's a good thing to bring it out into the public. Hey, this is going on, guys. So that, you know, strong guys will step up and go, hey, I got you. Let's solve this. But a lot of weak guys are like, you know, women beat on men too, or you're over exaggerating. You know, they can't hear it. And it kind of disappointed me. On one hand, a lot of men just couldn't deal with the truth, right? They just couldn't deal with the pain. On the other hand, you get the sort of wild, and to use a very appropriate word, hysterical, you know, voice on the female side. Men are bad, masculinity is toxic, and that's not what Me Too really, to me, that's not the useful message. It's the exaggerated message, right? It went over the top, and it's still, that's out there. And there was so much negativity about men, and men are like afraid to speak You know, I mean, I've never had to work in a company, but if you say, hi, you look pretty today, apparently that's a microaggression or a micro rape, or I don't know what they're calling it today, but like guys are really confused about what's appropriate, like what's appropriately masculine, assertive, and what's aggressive. And there's no clean line because there's kind of hysteria on both sides. So there was so much negativity floating around. I was like, hey, I know such great guys. You're one of them. You know, great men who are really into, we have a lot of the same friends, right? Great men who like are building great lives and are what I call exemplars of positive masculinity. And I've worked a lot with David Data. You might have mentioned him in your earlier stuff. Have you gone to one of his weekends? I think you did, right?
No, I've never been. I would really like to. Yeah. It's on the list.
Yeah, he's an interesting cat. He's a really interesting cat. I was his business partner for 2 years. And so he wrote a book called Way of the Superior Man. So that's had a big influence on men. And there's great things about it, but there's some stuff that I think is a little bit off, you know? And I think that guys need a model of positive masculinity that's unique to them. Okay. So one of the things I've railed against for years, especially to women, stop using this term real man. Like men, stop using this term real man. Because like the guy who stays at home and takes care of his kids and plays tea party with his daughter, you know, in the afternoon, so she has a beautiful positive experience of the masculine growing up, that's a fucking real man. You know, firefighter, fucking real man. Soldier, real man. Psychologist, guy who sits in hospice with people who are dying. They're all versions of the masculine. They're all versions of protectiveness, kindness, boon, what Joseph Campbell would call giving boon, like as a king. There's the knight aspect, the prince, the king, the alchemist, the one who's transformative. You know, there's lots of ways of being a man. So I had this little brainstorm sitting on I was on the beach in Hawaii. Beaches are a theme for us, apparently. I had this idea when I was a kid. Yeah, I had this idea when I was a kid that if you lived by the beach, it meant you were rich. So I figured if I went to the beach, I would suddenly be rich. Also, I might find genie in a bottle. You know, not the Robin Williams version, the Barbara Eden version, which probably predates you. But that was a very formative show. You could have a beautiful blonde girl in a bottle and keep her in your room. Tell her to come out and she'll call you master. Yeah.
Yeah, I could get into that.
So I went to Hawaii looking for Jeannie. And I just had this idea of like, hey, there's so many positive models of masculinity that are really different from each other. Why don't I gather a bunch of my friends, basically, and I got 33 guys who are all really accomplished in different ways, and create what we call the Inspired Man Summit. So inspiredmansummit.com. And I basically got them together to talk about how they live their inspired life and how each one is different from others. So we've got guys, you know, from the entrepreneurial world, amazing guys like Mike Dillard, Yannick Silver, who does such amazing work with Richard Branson. You know, they do incredible work around the world, building villages, rebuilding villages after storms, cleaning up the water. You know, Mike is an avatar of just creating something from nothing. I mean, he was a waiter. You know, he's a multimillionaire with a huge impact in the world. We have great people like Warren Farrell, who just wrote a book called The Boy Crisis. You might want him on your show, by the way. He's been.
I would love to have Warren on. He's a fascinating guy because he used to be as involved as any man could be with the National Organization for Women, and then
he's on the board.
And his story, and then the way that he's seen the shift between just listening to him talk taught me so much about what's going on with our culture with masculine and the feminine, and how the pendulum has swung. And it's been an interesting, I don't know, last 30, 40 years or 50 years, however long.
Yeah, well, in the late 60s, early 70s, he was a psychologist, and he was a super feminist, which is great. I mean, there's great things about feminism. But he saw that, you know, while there was lots of talk about women and women's self-expression, there was no place for men to talk, and no one was talking about men's pain and boys' pain. Brene Brown had the same realization one day. She tells the story. She was teaching female shame, and a guy came up to her, how can we never talk about men? She's like, men don't have shame. And he goes, oh, yeah? He goes, my wife and daughter would rather see me die on my white horse than fall off of it. And that was her wake-up moment. Holy shit, men have so much shame and so much pent-up anxiety that they can't talk about, right? And that changed her life. So Warren Farrell, we had him. I interviewed him yesterday, and just a not so humble brag, but it made me very happy. He said in 40 years it was the best interview he ever had, because I've been so involved in his work. So I'm setting the bar for you, buddy. So
I'm actually writing his name down as a reminder.
I'll connect you.
I definitely want to interview him.
He's a deep, good man. And then we have people like Lion Goodman, who does such great work on purpose and virtues, like old-fashioned masculine virtues, but not dumb, reactive ones, but the kind of stoic, solid virtues. He helps men develop that. I have a guy who does rites of passage with tens of thousands of kids, teenage boys over the last few years, named Mark Schillinger. We've got John Gray, of course, from Mars and Venus World. We've got guys who are like therapists, and we've got guys who are kind of warriors. Your buddy Vince Del Monte, someone who I've just been so proud to know for so many years, Skinny Vinny, who becomes a bodybuilder and just is a virtuous dude. He's an honest, straightforward dude. So like from muscle heads to kind of real, softer, feminine type of guys, who are communicative. So we have a whole range of masculinity. And my purpose of doing this Inspired Man Summit was to get the message out to guys. Hey, there's a real man you have to live up to. There's lots of ways of living out your masculinity that are positive. So that's why I created this. Yeah.
What would you how would you describe the difference between masculinity and femininity? And I'm of the thought too that masculine isn't always attached to gender.
No, never. No. I mean, that's the great, like in David Data's work, which there's so much work on masculine and feminine. He's such a great, strong writer that people misunderstand what he says. When you really get to know what he's saying is that every human being has the spectrum of masculine to feminine. What we call, first of all, there's no such thing as a masculine. I've never bumped my head on the masculine, right? I've avoided those parties, but I've never not masculine wandering around the world, except the Burning Man, of course. But there's no the masculine or the feminine in the world, right? These are terms that we've created to describe certain kinds of energies. All of us possess them. And what David Data says, and I absolutely agree with him, is that the artistry of life is the ability to cultivate your self-choice such that you can play that whole spectrum. So masculine, obviously, the energy that we call masculine is the thing that penetrates the world, that creates order, that creates shape, right? And the feminine, traditionally in most cultures, is the receptive, right? There's obviously a biological parallel, but the feminine isn't the stillness, the witness, the consciousness, right? That's watching the world, that has the ability to detach, that men generally are better at doing, right? The feminine is the receptive and also the flow of nature, right? The flow of love, the flow of connection. There's, flow is a big word there. And so, Data talks about like the masculine is the river banks, and the feminine is the water that flows. And the feminine, people generally are happiest when the feminine is flowing and the masculine is kind of holding and beholding. Like we love to behold the feminine. Now, the worst part of feminist ideology is like, oh, it's called the male gaze. It's a terrible thing. Well, it's actually a worshipful thing, to have the witness be in communion with the dance. I mean, that's beauty. Those are two parts of just the beauty of being alive. Data calls masculine consciousness an aspect of love, and feminine flow and connection an aspect of love. They're two different aspects. Now, as men, we have the option, by the way, to be that strong, silent observer who doesn't get caught up in the emotions of the moment. But we also have the option, if we want, of getting out on the dance floor and dancing and flowing. Some of the best nights of my life on, I don't even remember what substances, out there in the desert. But I was out there with a woman I met online. She was a what's it called? Lingerie model and champion skier, like competitive skier. And we were out there dancing naked all night long. And I will never forget that in my life. And it was just pure feminine flow dancing to the music. And it was a beautiful thing. So we have the option of playing the masculine when it's needed, choosing it when the masculine is needed. Like when your wife, your girlfriend's like going out of her mind and she's confused and it's like, hey, here's the thing to do. And she's like, thank you, right? But there are also times we need to be in our feminine to adjust to them when they need that or when the moment requires it, right? To just be receptive and listen and not give direction. Like, for example, as a father, there are times when it's really important to just be receptive and let your children speak. Let them be heard and not be that fatherly role of directing them. So to me, a fully integrated human can play the whole masculine feminine.
Yeah. I find when the more work I've done in that area, the better all my relationships become, and then with my wife especially, it just creates a lot more ease in the relationship.
I mean, you're so feminine. I don't even know how you get out of bed in the morning. You're just so soft and liquid, you know. Yeah.
Working on it.
Yeah. No, I know. I've seen the change over the years.
Yeah.
And it's being more, I mean, look, we use the term masculine and feminine, but they're just aspects of being a human being. You know, and if your goal in life, like mine has always been, ever since I was a little kid, to fucking experience this life while we have it, right? Then I want to be able to experience the full spectrum of what it means to be human.
100%. 100%. If people want to attend the summit, where do they go?
It's free, folks. So come on in. www.inspiredmansummit.com. www.inspiredmansummit.com. We start on the 25th of March. Everyone is amazing, by the way. You'll see that my interview style is very like, all right, what's the idea? Cool. Let's have some examples. What can guys do? What's 3 things they can do today? How do we take this wisdom and make it real? So every single one of these, I call them trainings really, because I really go for how do we make this real for listeners. Starts on the 25th, runs through April 8th. You can listen for free every day. You could buy the whole package if you want. It'll stay up there. It's available for people. It's so good, man. You can tell. I'm jazzed. I did a couple of the interviews today, and I'm happy, you know, like I'm happy to, first of all, have friends like you, friends like these guys who really bring wisdom, and happy that I can do this as a living and as a passion. Yeah. So
I checked out the list, man. Solid list, solid dudes.
Right.
A lot of them I know. Some of them I've heard of but haven't listened to yet. So I'm going to hop in there and give it a listen. This is going to be really good. And again, very rarely do I do this remote interview thing, but I did it today because I know that it'll help men out.
Thank you.
We need it. So thank you for doing the work. Where can people find out more about what you're up to?
Cool, man. Okay, so Inspired Man Summit. I'm at adamgilad.com, ADAMGILAD, adamgilad.com. Bold Life Community on Facebook. And then, as you and I were talking about, you've kind of inspired me. I'm starting a podcast in April. We're scheduled to start late April. It's called Fuck Normal, the Bold Life Giladcast. Because I always say fuck normal or normal will fuck you, because normal was not made for you. So those are the places. Fuck Normal Podcast, adamgilad.com, Inspired Man Summit.
So thanks for joining us today.
Dude, so good to see you, man.
Later. Bye.